If you want to know what was really going on in Henry VIII's court, one man wrote it all down, sometimes with biting sarcasm, sometimes with sympathy, always with a flair for gossip. His name was Eustace Chapuys, and he was the Imperial ambassador who spent nearly 2 decades in England, reporting back to his master, the Emperor Charles V. Whenever you read about Catherine of Aragon's misery, Anne Boleyn's sharp words, or Princess Mary's trials, chances are pretty good that the details come from one of Chapuys' letters. So get comfy, grab your water or your coffee. Today I'm drinking my coffee with a TudorCon mug. And settle in, because today we are going to talk about Henry's noisiest observer and how his words shaped how we understand the Tudor court today. Hey friend, welcome back to the YouTube channel for the Renaissance English History Podcast. I am your host, Heather. I've been podcasting on Tudor England since 2009, which makes my show the original Tudor history show. I am delighted, as always, that you are here with me today talking about Eustace Chapuys, his life, why he matters, his relationships with Anne Boleyn, Catherine of Aragon, and Mary I. Also, at the end of this video, I'm going to do a little chit-chat recap of TudorCon and tell you why Janet Wortman at Too Much Tudor is an absolute rock star. So let's dive in. Eustace Chapuys was born around 1490 in the Duchy of Savoy. It was a region tucked between what is now France and Switzerland. He studied law at the University of Turin, where he proved himself a sharp mind with a gift for detail, qualities that would serve him well in diplomacy. Before he arrived in England, he entered the service of Charles V, who was, of course, the most powerful monarch in Europe at the time. He ruled Spain, the Low Countries, parts of Italy, and he stretched into the Americas. Now, Charles needed men that he could trust to keep an eye on England, especially once Henry VIII began seeking an annulment from his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Catherine was, of course, Charles's aunt, and her treatment was both a family and a political issue. So Chapuys arrived in England in 1529, and he stepped right into the middle of the king's great matter. His assignment was simple in theory: represent the emperor's interests. But in practice, that meant spying and negotiating and flattering and sometimes even scolding one of the most temperamental monarchs in Europe. Chapuys quickly became more than just an ambassador. He was Catherine's champion, Mary's advocate, and one of the sharpest observers of court life. He also became the ultimate Tudor letter writer. He sent home dispatches full of colorful details. Sometimes they were accurate, sometimes they weren't. They were always incredibly vivid. You can still go see them. They're in the archives in Spain in Simancas. Now, from the moment he arrived, Chapuys threw himself into Catherine of Aragon's cause. He admired her deeply. He described her in his letters as a woman of extraordinary dignity and strength. To him, she was the true Queen of England. She was wronged by Henry, and she was threatened by Anne Boleyn. Chapuys worked tirelessly to defend her marriage, trying every diplomatic trick he could think of. He pressed Henry to reconsider. He appealed to Cardinal Wolsey. He later appealed to Cromwell. He wrote urgently to Charles V, begging him to intervene, and his letters describe Catherine's struggles in heartbreaking detail: her separation from her daughter Mary, the reduction of her household, and her declining health. He admired her courage in refusing to yield even when it cost her everything. In 1533, when Catherine was ordered to stop calling herself queen, Chapuys wrote that she calmly replied that she would never call herself anything else. His reports preserved her stubborn, principled resistance, the qualities that made her a figure of almost saintly endurance for future generations. But of course, Chapuys was more than just a recorder. He actively encouraged Catherine to resist Henry's demands. He advised her on strategy, he urged her to stand firm, and he reassured her that Charles V supported her. He sometimes exaggerated Henry's supposed weakness in his letters, trying to give Catherine hope. In this way, he was both observer and participant, shaping events while also describing them. When Catherine died in January 1536, Chapuys mourned her sincerely. He was one of the last people to spend time with her when she was still alive. He reported on her final illness and her funeral, and his dispatches are some of our most important sources for her last days. For him, her death was not only a personal loss, but also the collapse of the cause that he had fought for since stepping foot in England. If Catherine was Chapuys' heroine, Anne Boleyn was the villain. In his letters, he rarely even gave her the dignity of her name, referring to her as the Concubine. To him, Anne represented everything that had gone wrong in England: Catherine's humiliation, Mary's disinheritance, and Henry's break with her. Chapuys' dispatches about Anne are some of the liveliest accounts that we have. He described her sharp temper, her influence over Henry, and the dramatic scenes that played out at court. When Anne was triumphant, he painted her as scheming and arrogant. When her star started to wane a little bit, he reveled in the gossip. His letters about her arrest in 1536 are among the most detailed sources that we possess, passing along every rumor he heard about her alleged affairs and plot. But his bias meant that he wasn't always accurate. He relied heavily on whispers from Catherine's household and other sympathetic sources, and he had no problem at all repeating unverified stories if they suited his narrative. Still, even if they must be read with caution, Chapuys' descriptions of Anne's rise and fall are some of the most vivid portraits of Tudor politics in action. If Anne Boleyn brought out Chapuys' sharpest criticisms, Princess Mary inspired his deepest loyalty. He became something like a protector and a mentor to her during the years when she was treated as little more than a bastard. Chapuys repeatedly pressed Henry to restore her to favor and lobbied for her recognition as heir to the throne. His letters record Mary's poor treatment, her separation from her mother, the pressure on her to acknowledge Anne Boleyn as queen, and the stress that undermined her health. He noted the bouts of illness and her devotion to her faith. He praised her piety and her intelligence. For historians, these reports are, of course, priceless. Without Chapuys, we would have far fewer glimpses into Mary's daily life, what she read, how she behaved under pressure, and how determined she was to remain true to her mother's cause. Chapuys outlasted Anne Boleyn and remained at court through Henry's marriages to Jane Seymour, Anne of Cleves, and Catherine Howard. By the 1540s, though, his health was beginning to fail, and the exhausting years of service finally caught up with him. He retired in 1545. He withdrew to Louvain in the Low Countries. He lived quietly there, managing his affairs and corresponding with old friends until his death in 1556. By then, he had written thousands of pages of reports that still survive in the archives today. His correspondence forms one of the richest collections of 16th century diplomatic writing, a record of Henry VIII's reign from the sharp pen of an outsider who saw everything and rarely kept his opinions to himself. One of the fascinating threads in Chapuys' career was his cautious relationship with Thomas Cromwell. This appears a lot in the Wolf Hall storyline. Though they were on opposite sides politically, they often needed one another. Cromwell could use Chapuys to carry messages to Charles V or gauge the emperor's mood, while Chapuys depended on Cromwell's influence to protect Mary or ease Catherine's treatment. Their conversations often appear in Chapuys' letters, showing these two shrewd operators kind of circling each other, neither entirely trusting, but both pragmatic enough to cooperate when it suited their aims. And he likely would have felt some real grief when Cromwell was brought down. Also, while Chapuys despised Anne Boleyn, it might surprise you that he didn't actually believe the charges that destroyed her. In his reports from May of 1536, he suggested that the accusations of adultery and incest were exaggerated, a convenient means to clear the way for Jane Seymour. Even Chapuys, who had called her the concubine for years, seemed to feel a flicker of sympathy when she met her end with calm composure on the scaffold. His letters from that spring show both the brutality of Henry's court and the way even sworn enemies could recognize Anne's tragic fate. So Eustace Chapuys was not a neutral observer. His devotion to Catherine of Aragon and Mary, his contempt for Anne, colored every report he sent. But bias doesn't erase value. His letters are essential windows into the Tudor court, filled with detail that no other English chronicler provides. Without Chapuys, much of the personal texture of Henry VIII's reign, the whispered gossip, the defiant words, the glimpses of private suffering, would have been lost. So the next time you run across a juicy piece of Tudor gossip, remember, the chances are pretty good that Eustace Chapuys was the one who wrote it down first, so you can thank him for that. So that is a little bit about Eustace Chapuys, my friend. I hope you enjoyed this little discussion. Oh, I'm talking about Chapuys today because this takes me into my TudorCon recap. I'm probably going to be recapping TudorCon for quite some time because there was a lot that happened. But I do have to lead with the highlight of, there were many highlights, but one of the highlights of the week was that Janet Wertman is an absolute rock star. Our speaker who was supposed to speak on Eustace Chapuys never actually showed up. They were supposed to talk at 9:00 on Sunday morning. They emailed me at 8:46 and said, trains aren't running and they're going to miss this presentation. So, nothing like a room of 80 people and a bunch of people on a Zoom call waiting and trying to pull that one together. So Janet Wertman, rock star that she is, you go follow at Too Much Tudor on YouTube if you haven't already. She's amazing. I mean, I've always loved her anyway, but she just kind of proves over and over again how awesome. I've known Janet for about 10 years and she's been coming to TudorCon since the very, very beginning. Spoke at the first one. She's just like such a supporter and just so amazing, has so much knowledge. Her books are great. So seriously, go follow her. She talks about books and writing. She participated this year in the writers roundtable thing that we had, kind of talking about writing and publishing, because a lot of people in the Tudor world have a book inside of them. So we had this roundtable with different writers talking about how they publish and how to get published and things like that. And I have news about myself with that too. I should save that for another video because I can't throw it all in at once. But basically, I have a book deal. Get me saying that. I have a book deal. I'll announce it this week. I promise. I will tell you. It's very, very exciting. I'll give you a hint. It's not a straight history book. So my agent was there as well, talking about writing, part of the Writers Roundtable. So that was fun. So Janet was part of that, and it was great. So Sunday morning, I get this note at 8:46. We were all frantically running around trying to find our speaker. Like, where are they? I don't know. And so I see Janet in the bathroom line after I saw the email, and I go up and I'm like, Janet, how would you like to do a talk on Chapuys in 14 minutes? And Janet's like, looks at me and she's like, you're kidding, right? I was like, oh no, I'm not. I'm perfectly serious. She's like, okay. So then I saw her a couple minutes later and she's sitting there with Chapuys' Wikipedia page open. And she's like, well, I'm preparing, right? So she did amazing. She talked about not just Chapuys, but the role of ambassadors in general, how to research some of this stuff. She showed, kind of just the process that went into life as an ambassador. She was amazing. Like, I cannot even tell you how she just saved it. She's just a rock star. That's all there is to it. So that was probably our biggest potential crisis, which Janet saved and did an amazing talk. We had talks over the weekend. So let me go back and start at the beginning, which is Friday. We start at, 7. We're at Agecroft Hall. If you don't know, it's a Tudor home. It's actually from the Tudor period. It's in Virginia, but it was brought over piece by piece. There was a wealthy tobacco farmer that wanted to live in a Tudor home, and so he brought it over, as one does. And so we started with a welcome party, and we had some amazing performers. We had the Reeling Rogues. Well, we had a Reeling Rogue and Unquiet Grave, who perform at Renaissance festivals. And we had a trivia contest. We had our costume contest. We ate some good food. We played human bingo. I should find my bingo card, which was Vicky's idea. Lovely Vicky also wrote me this card back here because it was her first time at TudorCon, and she wrote me a little card saying how much she was looking forward to TudorCon, and that was fun. So Vicky had this idea to play bingo, and we incorporated that. So everybody got a little bingo card with things like, has been to the Tower of London, watched The Crown, all of that kind of stuff. And then people would go around finding people who fit their bingo card. And then that would be that. So yeah, and whoever got bingo first got a prize. So we had a fun evening, and then that ended. And then Saturday morning we came back. We had a talk on, what was our first talk of the day? Oh, AJ talked about the King's state of mind. I'd interviewed AJ on the channel here before, talking about the psychology of Henry VIII. It was a really interesting talk. And then we had, the person talking about the magic of Holbein, Mallory Jackson, talking about Holbein's paintings. And that was great. And then terms of adornment, the jewelry in the portrait collection at H-Croft was really interesting as well, by somebody who is a docent at H-Croft. Oh, and there were tours in the morning after breakfast as well. You could either go on a house tour or a garden tour, so that was fun. What else? Then we had lunch. We had a buffet lunch, and after lunch we had a dancing lesson. The Richmond Renaissance dancers came, and Queen Elizabeth herself was there calling out the dances, and everybody danced. Everybody got to try out, well, if they wanted to. Nobody was forced, but people could dance with the Richmond Renaissance dancers. And we were outside on the terrace. It was really lovely. It was a beautiful day. We had beautiful weather. It was amazing. We could not have ordered better weather. And then we had talks. What are the talks in the afternoon? The importance of the Southeast. Misty, who's been on the channel as well. Danielle talked about Anne Boleyn's ancestors. Who was the talk right after lunch? Why am I blanking on that? Who was right after lunch? Somebody was right after lunch. Ugh. I'm going to have to look this up. I'm going to have to look it up. Where is it? Because I can't not say it. I can't not say it. That would be horrible. Oh, John D. Of course, Tiffany, who comments here all the time. Tiffany, the wonderful Tiffany, talked about John D. That was really interesting too. Fantastic. And then Saturday night, we had this concert with Ron McFarlane and Andrew McAvoy. It was magical. It was a beautiful night. We had, we were again outside on the terrace, and it was just, so again, perfect weather. There was this full moon coming out. There we are in the atmosphere, being outside this home. We had little flickering candles and electric ones, obviously, or battery operated ones. It was just perfect. And they ended their concert, the encore was the theme song from my podcast, which I literally started crying. It was so special. It was just really, really special. Gonna start crying again thinking about it. It was really magical. So there was that. And then Saturday we came back, we had breakfast, and then we had Janet's talk, which was great. And then Colleen talked about women who were the women who came over to immigrate to the New World. It was kind of like the Forging Their Own Path, I think was the name of her talk. And then Sarah talked about mumming and mummers and kind of Yuletide in the Tudor period, which was also quite fun. Of course, we do that program every year, Yuletide with the Tudors. So I was enjoying watching that. And then we took our group picture, and then we were done. And that was it. So that was TudorCon. But we had a lot of people online. We had a lot of people come in person, and we're going to do it next year, October 23rd through 25th. So stay tuned for all of the early bird details and stuff, in a little bit, probably around Thanksgiving in the US. I'll announce it because I'll probably do like a Thanksgiving early bird deal. So you can start to plan for that, unless you were there, of course, in which case you get the super secret attendee price to come back next year, and you have that link in your email. So it was amazing. It was just so great to be around our community of people, right? There's people who have been coming since the very beginning who've met their best friends there. There's people who now travel together, go on trips together. It's just so often we're these islands of Tudor nerds, and it's just so magical to all get together in person. And we all get each other's jokes, and it's just such a welcoming, beautiful community. And I feel really special to be able to be a part of that. So thank you to those of you who came. Thank you to those of you who came online. and let's do it again. And over the next couple of weeks, I'll be sharing some of the highlights from the different talks, and you'll get a sense of what people were talking about. All right, I think that's it. I'm beat. I'm still super beat, but it's all right. It's good. It's worth it. If you made it this far in the video and you enjoyed it, you know what I'm about to say. I sure would appreciate to press that like button. It helps to feed the algorithm and get our content to even more people. And I hope that if I don't already have your subscription to my channel, that I have earned it. If you would like to keep watching Chapuys content, here is a video on his relationship with Cromwell, digging deep into that. You might enjoy that. Here's a video that YouTube thinks you'll like. Thank you so much for being here, my friend. Know that you are deeply loved. I am so glad we share the planet with each other. You make the planet a better place, and I'm grateful we got to spend this time talking about Chapuys with each other. All right, I'll be back very soon. In the meantime, don't forget to drink your water. All right, friend, bye-bye.